saw him heading to town.
He's gone to the train station, Rachel. We're getting a little boy from the orphan asylum in Nova Scotia.
Can't be in earnest.
Mrs. Peter Blewett's bringing him on the 5:30 train. She was going to the orphanage to get a girl for her cousin, so we just told her to pick us up a boy.
Well, Marilla, I'll tell you plain that I think you're doing a mighty foolish thing. You're bringing a strange child into your house, and you don't even know a single thing about him. I heard of an orphan girl once over in New Brunswick who put strychnine in the well, and the whole family died in fearful agonies.
Well, we're not getting a girl. I wouldn't dream of a girl. We need someone to help work this farm.
It's so wonderful that I'm going to live with you. I've never belonged to anybody. Not really. I feel pretty nearly perfectly happy. I can't feel exactly perfectly happy because, well, what color would you call this?
It's red, ain't it?
Yes, it's red. Now you see why I can't be perfectly happy. I cannot imagine that red hair away. I do my best. I think to myself, now my hair is a glorious black, black as the raven's wing. But all the time I know that it's just plain red, and it breaks my heart. It will be my lifelong sorrow. And I make poem.
Would you like some tea?
Yes, thank you. Oh, I must be in a dream. Hello.
Where's the boy?
There wasn't any boy.
There must have been a boy. We sent word to bring a boy.
There was only her.
Well, this is a pretty piece of business.
He don't want me. He don't want me because I'm not a boy. I might have known nobody really did want me.
I'll be on my way now.
There's no need to cry about it.
Yes, there is need. He would cry too if you were an orphan and came to a place he thought was going to be home, but found it didn't want you because you weren't a boy. Oh, this is the most tragical thing that's ever happened to me.
Well, you don't need to cry anymore. We're not going to turn you out of doors tonight. We'll investigate this affair tomorrow. What's your name?
Will you please call me Cordelia?
Is that your name?
No, not exactly. But I would love to be called Cordelia. It's such an elegant name.
I don't know what on earth you mean. If Cordelia isn't your name, what is?
Anne Shirley. Well, oh, please do call me Cordelia. It can't matter much to you what you call me, if I'm only going to be here a little while, can it? And Anne is such an unromantic name.
Unromantic fiddlesticks. Anne is a good, plain, sensible name, and that's what I'll call you.
Well then, could you please call me Anne, spelled with an E?
What difference does it make how it's spelled?
Oh, it makes such a difference. When you hear a name, can't you always see it in your mind? A-N-N looks dreadful. The A-N-N-E looks so much more distinguished. If you'll only call me Anne, spelled with an E, I shall try to reconcile myself to not being called Cordelia.
Very well then, Anne with an E. Take off your coat and have some supper.
The trip to the station's made me hungry.
Did you ask Mrs. Peter Blewett why she brought a girl?
Never saw her. She left Anne with the station master. He said she didn't bring no boys off the train. Didn't see how she could be left at the station, no matter where the mistake was.
Well, Mrs. Peter Blewett's going to the berries tomorrow morning. I'll talk to her first thing. You're not eating.
I can't. I'm in the depths of despair. Can you eat when you're in the depths of despair?
I've never been in the depths of despair, so I can't say.
Well, did you ever try to imagine that you're in the depths of despair?
No, I didn't.
Then I don't think you can understand what it's like. It's a very uncomfortable feeling. When you try to eat, a lump comes right up in your throat, and you can't swallow anything, not even if it was a chocolate caramel. I had one chocolate caramel 2 years ago, and it was simply delicious. I've often dreamed that I had a lot of chocolate caramels, but I always wake up just when I'm about to eat them. I hope you're not offended because I can't eat. Everything's extremely nice, but I can't.
I guess she's tired. Let's put her to bed, Marilla.
I suppose. I made up the couch in the back room for the boy, but that won't do for her. We'll have to put you in the east gable, I guess. It's plain, but it's clean. Bring your bag. I suppose you have a nightgown?
Yes, the matron of the asylum made it for me. It's fearfully skimpy, but you can feel just as well in it as in a lovely trailing one with frills round the collar.
Well, undress as quick as you can and go to bed. I'll come back in a few minutes for the candle. I daren't trust you to put it out yourself. You'd likely set the place on fire. Good night.
How can you call it a good night when you know it must be the very worst night I've ever had?
That's a good old bed. Nice and firm. And you've a room all to yourself. I expect that this is a far better night than most you had back in the asylum. Good night. Mrs. Peter Blue will be at the Berries by 9. I'll talk to her direct this time. The child will have to be sent back.
Yes, I suppose so.
You suppose so? Don't you know it?
Well, now, it's kind of a pity sending her back. Would she still sit on staying?
Matthew Cuthbert, you don't mean to say that you think we ought to keep her?
Well, now, no, not exactly. I suppose we can't be expected to keep her.
I should say not. What good would she be to us?
We might be of some good to her.
I believe that child has bewitched you.
Well, now, she's a real interesting little thing. You should have heard her talk coming from the station.
I don't want an orphan girl, and if I did, she isn't the style I'd pick. No, she's got to be sent back straight away.
Good morning, Miss Cuthbert. Good morning, Mr. Cuthbert. Oh, isn't it wonderful? Don't you feel as if you loved the world on a morning like this? I'm not in the depths of despair anymore. I've just been imagining that it was me you really wanted after all, and that I was to stay here forever and ever. It was a great comfort while it lasted.
Sit down and eat your breakfast.
I'm pretty hungry this morning. The world doesn't seem such a howling wilderness as it did last night. I'm so glad it's sunshiny. But I like rainy mornings real well, too. All sorts of mornings are interesting, don't you think? But it's easier to be cheerful and bear up under affliction on a sunshiny day.
For pity's sakes, hold your tongue. You talk entirely too much for a little girl. Can you wash dishes right?
Pretty well. I'm better at looking after children. It's a pity you haven't anyone here for me to look after.
I don't want any more children than I've got at present. What's to be done with you, I don't know. Matthew's a most ridiculous man.
I think he's lovely. He's so very sympathetic. I felt he was a kindred spirit as soon as I ever saw him.
You're both strange enough, if that's what you mean. When you wash the dishes, be sure you take plenty of hot water and dry them well. After you finish the dishes, we'll go over to the Berries and settle what's to be done with you.
I'm not going to think about going back. I'm going to enjoy my breakfast and these trees. Oh, look! There's that little early wild rose out. Isn't pink the most bewitching color in the entire world? I love it, but I can't wear it. Red-headed people can't wear pink. Not even in imagination. Did you ever know of anybody whose hair was red when she was young, but got to be another color when she grew up?
No, I don't know as I ever did, and I shouldn't think it likely to happen in your case either.
Well, there's another hope gone. My life was a perfect graveyard of buried hopes. That's a sentence I read in a book once. I say it to comfort myself whenever I'm disappointed in anything. It's so nice and romantic, don't you think?
Since you're bent on talking, you might as well talk to some purpose. Tell me what you know about yourself. Where were you born and such?
Bolingbroke, Nova Scotia. My father was Walter Shirley, and he was a teacher at the high school. My mother was Bertha Shirley. Aren't Walter and Bertha lovely names?
A person's name doesn't matter as long as she behaves herself.
My mother was a teacher too, but Mrs. Thomas told me they were a pair of babies and poor as church mice. They went to live in a teeny-weeny little yellow house. I never really saw it, but I've imagined it thousands of times. Honeysuckle over the parlor window, lilacs
I don't need your imaginings. Stick to the bald facts.
Mrs. Thomas told me I was the homeliest baby she ever saw. Nothing but eyes. But my mother thought I was perfectly beautiful. I'm glad she was satisfied with me, because she didn't live long, you see. She died of fever when I was just 3 months old. There was no family to take me in, and nobody wanted me. Finally, Mrs. Thomas took me, even though she had a drunken husband. I lived with them until I was 8. I helped look after their children. There were 4 of them younger than me. Then Mr. Thomas was killed falling under a train. And his mother offered to take Mrs. Thomas and the children, but she didn't want me. Finally, Mrs. Hammond took me, since I was handy with children. She had 2 when I came, and afterwards twins 3 times in succession. When Mr. Hammond died, she broke up housekeeping, divided her children among her relatives, and went to the States. I had to go to the asylum because nobody would take me. I was there 4 months. Then Mrs. Blewett came. Those are the facts.
Were those women good to you?
Oh, they meant to be. Just as good and kind as possible. And when people mean to be good, you don't mind so very much when they're not quite. Always. They had a great deal to worry them, you know. It's very trying to have a drunken husband and twins 3 times in succession. But I feel sure they meant to be good to me. I'll wash the dishes now.
Why don't you go outside first? You can wash the dishes after. What's the matter?
If I go out there, well, there's no use in my living Green Gables if I can't stay. I'll do the dishes and we can go.
Why, good morning, Miss Cuthbert. Won't you come in? Mother's just taking some lemon muffins out of the oven.
Thank you. Has Mrs. Peter Blewett come yet? Your mother said she'd be stopping by this morning.
Why, yeah, she's just arrived. Mrs. Lynde was here too, but she left when Mrs. Blewett came. Would you like me to fetch her for you?
Thank you. I'll go in. This is Anne Shirley. This is Diana and her sister Minnie May, Anne.
Diana. What a perfectly lovely name. Diana was a goddess, you know. I'm Anne with an E on the end. It's much more elegant.
Let's go in, Anne.
Oh, Marilla, I thought I heard your voice. How good of you to drop by. I see you got the girl, all right? Couldn't waste time in the station reading round last night.
The girl's why I've come, Mrs. Peter Blewett. You see, there's been a mistake. We wanted a boy. We sent word to your brother Robert to tell you that we wanted a boy.
Nancy. Well, Robert sent word by his daughter Nancy that you wanted a girl. She's a terrible flight of you, Nancy. I can't count the times I had to chastise her for her heedlessness. It's not my fault.
We should have come to you ourselves on such an important matter, not trusting to a message. But anyhow, the mistake has been made, and the only thing to do now is to set it right. Can we send the child back to the asylum? I suppose they'll take her, won't they?
I suppose so, but you know, that may not be necessary. All the way back yesterday, I was thinking, why didn't I get one of those orphans to come work for me? You know how hard it is to keep good health. I swear, the girls I hire don't know what it means to work. Think they'd come to eat my food and let the children run wild.
Your children are full of energy, Mrs. Blewett.
That's why I've got those serving girls there, to get that energy out of them. Let me look at you, girl. What's your name again?
Anne Shirley.
That's right. It's not much to it. Now that cook practically shoved her at me. They said she'd be a good worker, but she seemed a little too eager to get to her, to my mind. She is wiry, though. Wiry ones are the best.
Do you have any twins, Mrs. Blewett?
What business is that of yours? If I take you, you'll have to be a good girl. Good and smart and respectful. I have 4 boys and 1 little girl, and you'll earn your keep. There's no mistake about that. You've experienced caring for children, haven't you?
Yes.
Well then, I suppose I might as well take her off your hands, Miss Cuthbert. That sluggard I have now is just about to run off. I saw it in her eye this morning. Having one like this will save me the trouble of having a new girl every morning. If you like, I'll take her right now.
Well,
Minnie, it's all right.
I hadn't exactly said that Matthew and I had decided not to keep her. In fact, Matthew is inclined to have her stay. I oughtn't to decide without consulting him. If we choose not to keep her, we'll send her over to you tomorrow night. Will that suit you, Mrs. Peter Blewett?
I suppose it'll have to.
Won't you come in, Marilla? You too, Anne. There's more muffins.
Thank you, but I told Matthew we'd be home as soon as possible.
I've never seen you so solicitous of Matthew, Marilla. Come, Diana, we mustn't keep Mrs. Peter Blewett waiting.
Well, perhaps I'll see you again sometime.
Let's go, Anne.
Oh, Miss Cuthbert, would you really let me stay at Green Gables?
It isn't decided yet. Perhaps we will conclude to let Mrs. Peter Blewett take you after all.
I'd rather go back to the asylum than live with her. She looks exactly like a gimlet.
A little girl like you should be ashamed of talking so. You hold your tongue and behave as a good girl should.
I'll try to do and be anything you want, if only you'll keep me.
You can practice keeping your thoughts to yourself then, as we head back to Green Gables.
You shall see how strong I can be, Miss Cuthbert. I'll be the model of golden silence. I shall be as quiet as the leaves when the wind stops blowing after a storm. That's a lovely, cool quiet, isn't it? Even the insects seem to be waiting to make sure. That's the last of the dishes, Miss Cuthbert, and I believe they're dried very well. It does make one feel very satisfied to have completed the task down to every detail and just the way it was supposed to be done.
It's time for bed, Anne.
I'm still bursting with energy, Miss Cuthbert.
It is time for bed.
Good night, Mr. Cuthbert.
Good night, Anne.
I look forward to seeing your smiling face in the morning.
I wouldn't give a dog to that Blewett woman, let alone a child like that.
I don't fancy Mrs. Peter Blewett's style either, but it's that will keep the child ourselves. I know that it's what you want, and I've been thinking over the idea. I dare say I'd make a terrible job of bringing up a child, especially a girl.
Well now, I thought you'd come to see that we should keep her. She's such an interesting little thing.
I have not yet said that we would keep her, and it would be more to the point to say that she was a useful little thing.
She's done fine by the dishes.
She'd have to be trained to everything, and there'd be no interfering from you. An old maid doesn't know much about bringing up a child, but I suppose she knows more than an old bachelor.
You can have your way, Marilla. Only be as good to her as you can without spoiling her. I kind of think she's the kind that you can get to do anything with, if you can only get her to love you.
Who'd have ever thought you'd be talking like that? Little girls have been your mortal fear since you were 5 years old.
Well now, I don't know that it's since I was 5, and this one's different.
We'll both be in for it if we do this.
We will.
I have not yet agreed to keep her.
I know.
Have you said your prayers?
I never say any prayers.
Don't you know it's terrible wicked not to say your prayers every night?
Mrs. Thomas told me that God made my hair red on purpose, and I haven't heard about him since.
While you are in my house, you must say your prayers.
Well, of course you want me to, but you'll have to tell me what to say.
First, you must kneel down.
Why must people kneel to pray? If I really wanted to pray, I'd go out into a great big field, all alone, and look up into the sky, that lovely blue sky that looks as if there's no end to its blueness. And I'd just feel a prayer. Well, what am I to say?
Most children start with, "Now I lay me down to sleep." But I think you're old enough to pray for yourself. Just thank God for your blessings and ask Him humbly for the things you want.
I'll do my best. Gracious Heavenly Father, I thank Thee for the trees with their lovely blossoms, and the woods, and the flowers, and the lake of the shining waters. And that's what I've decided to call that lovely pond by the berries. I'm extremely grateful for them. That's all the blessings I can think of just now. As for the things I want, they're so numerous that it would take a great deal of time to name them all. So I will only mention the two most important. Please let me stay at Green Gables, and please let me be good looking when I grow up. I remain, yours respectfully, Anne Shirley. Is that yours? I could have made it much more flowery if I had a little more time to think it over. Oh, I should have said amen instead of yours respectfully. Do you suppose it will make any difference?
I don't suppose it will. Go to sleep now like a good child. Good night.
Miss Cuthbert, if you do allow me to stay, might I call you Aunt Marilla? I've never had an aunt or any relation, and it would make me feel as if I really belonged to you.
I'm not your aunt.
We could imagine you were.
When the Lord puts us in circumstances, He does not mean for us to imagine them away.
I don't know what I would have done all my life if I couldn't have imagined myself away from my circumstances.
Go to sleep now, like a good child.
Miss Cuthbert, won't you please tell me if you're going to send me away or not?
If I tell you we're going to send you away, you won't sleep for crying and being in the depths of despair. If I tell you we're going to keep you, you won't sleep from excitement. A night of sleep's too important to be lost, especially for a child. I'll tell you in the morning.
But Miss Cuthbert, if you don't tell me, I shan't sleep 1 week. I shall spend the entire night imagining the life that may lie before me. If I'm to be sent away, I'll seek to gather strength to face Mrs. Blewett. If I'm to stay, I'll seek to thank you for your generosity. So won't you please tell me?
Well, I suppose I might as well. You are next door to a perfect heathen, and there are so many things that you need to be taught. If you were to stay, I should have my hands full. But I suppose none of us can get through this life without our share of trouble. Matthew and I have decided to keep you. That is, if you will be a good girl. Why, child, whatever is the matter?
I'm crying. I can't say why. I'm as glad as I can be. Oh, Miss Cuthbert, I'll try to be so good. I promise you. But it will be uphill work, I expect. For Mrs. Thomas told me I was desperately wicked.
You are not wicked, child. I'm just afraid that you cry and laugh far too easily. Good night.
Miss Cuthbert, if I can't call you Aunt Marilla, what am I to call you?
You may just call me plain Marilla.
Won't that sound awfully disrespectful?
If you're careful and speak it respectfully, it will sound just fine. Good night.
Good night, Marilla.
Good night, Anne.
Marilla, I can say good night tonight with a clear conscience.
Good night, Anne.
Good night. Hello, Mr. Phillips.
Good to see you, girls.
Good morning.
Hope you had a good summer.
Morning.
You two ready to do some hard studying this year?
Yes, sir.
Just under the wire, girls.
Sorry, sir.
And the cutest by far of all the boys is Gilbert Blunt. He's always playing tricks and teasing the girls. I'm glad he won't be in school. Not till his uncle over New Brunswick's better anyway.
Miss Barry!
Oh, good morning, Mr. Phillips.
It would be a much better morning if you had been punctual, Diana Barry. The first day of school is hardly a day for tardiness.
I'm sorry, Mr. Phillips.
You've been a model student, Diana. I assume this morning's behavior is attributable to circumstances beyond your control, and I shan't hold it against you. You will find a textbook on your desk and the assignment on the board. I suggest you begin working immediately.
Yes, Mr. Phillips.
I would like to speak with this young lady alone for a moment.
This is Anne Shirley, Mr. Phillips. She's...
I'm well aware of who she is. You may go in, Diana.
Yes, Mr. Phillips.
I'm an understanding and compassionate man, Miss Shirley. But the world is neither understanding nor compassionate. It asks only, can you do the job? And this morning you failed to do it, young lady. Your lateness has started you off with a black mark. I want no repetition of this. Our scholars are not to be led into your errant ways.
Diana and I came as fast as we could, Mr. Phillips. We were both just so...
Excuses undo nothing. I understand that you've been taught no discipline, that you've led a fragmented life, and have not had to bind yourself to the grindstone.
I know what it is to work hard, Mr. Phillips.
You shall know what it is, my girl, and if you thrive on it, you will get along famously. I do not expect you to be a scholar, Miss Shirley. All I expect of a girl of your background is that you behave well.
But you see, Mr. Phillips, that's just it. I'll read and write all you want. But as for behavior, well, I'll try, but...
You shall do more than merely try, Miss Shirley, or both of us shall wish for your return to that pathetic institution from whence you come.
Gilbert! What did you do to Ruby?
Pin the hair on backwards here.
You You shouldn't do such things, Gilbert Blythe.
I would with someone like you, Diana.
Oh, yes.
But to a prissy thing like Ruby Gillis, her hair's as yellow as straw. She reminds me of a scarecrow. Except she cries all.
Mr. Blythe, I would like to speak with you, if you please.
Yes, sir.
No, not at them, but the silly creatures vent their immature energy. It's very good to have you back, my boy. As I expected, missing the first month of school hasn't hurt you one bit. Is your uncle in New Brunswick all right now?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Really, it's as if you haven't been gone. You moved right to the head of the class.
I've still plenty of work to do, Mr. Phillips. The new girl seems pretty intelligent.
Well, we'll finally have some competition for the top scholar prize.
I welcome the competition, sir.
Oh, Anne, I thought I was going to first. Did you see the look on Ruby's face when she screamed? Gil Blythe's the only boy in school who could do something like that and get away with it. Mr. Phillips had no idea. And
Just a minute.
he's awfully handsome, isn't he? Who? Gilbert Blythe, of course.
Yes, he's handsome, but he's far too bold. It isn't good manners to wink at a strange girl.
He winked at you.
Just after he peeled the pin out of Ruby's hair. He knew I saw him and he was just showing off, but I just turned away.
That would have been a shock for him. A girl turning away
It's his name that's written up in the porch wall with Julia Bell, isn't it?
with the big take notice heart over it.
Who's your new friend, Diana?
This is Anne Shirley, Gil. Anne spelled the elegant way with an E.
Well, how do you do, Miss Elegant Anne Shirley? Why, he's taken no notice of me.
She took notice of the writing on the porch wall.
Ah, the lovely Julia Bell. Yes, her and I are inextricably bound together. I learned my multiplication tables by counting the freckles on her face.
That's very cruel. And so is what you did to Ruby Gillis.
Well, yes, I can see why you wouldn't appreciate jokes about hair and freckles.
Charlie Sloane is dead gone on Anne, you know.
I hate Charlie Sloane.
Well, Jane Andrews told me that Minnie McPherson told her that she heard Charlie Sloane telling Ruby Gillis that Anne had a very nice nose.
Charlie Sloane is one of the least perceptive people in Avonlea. But in this case, I must say that I do agree. She does have a lovely nose. It works so stuck up in the air. Oh, you make sure you don't bruise that lovely nose by pressing it too hard on the grindstone. Though I suppose grinding your nose into the slate is your only choice if you're going to try and match me. Especially with hair like this. Carrots is what I call it.
Gil?
Hey everybody! Carrots!
And Shirley, what is the meaning of this? Answer me!
It's not her fault, Mr. Phillips.
Whose fault is it?
It was mine, sir. I teased her.
Teasing does not warrant violence. I'm appalled to see a student of mine displaying such a vindictive spirit. You shall write 100 times. Aunt Shirley has a very bad temper. Aunt Shirley must learn to control her temper. You shall learn this is not the way children in Avonlea behave. Now go in and begin immediately.
We better go before you time.
Go on, Gil.
I'm awful sorry, Anne. Honest I am.
I shall never forgive Gilbert Blythe. The iron has entered into my soul.
Oh, Anne, he makes fun of all the girls, and I've never heard him apologize for anything before. He laughs at my hair because it's so black. He must have called me Crow a dozen times.
There's a great deal of difference between being called a crow and being called carrots. He's hurt my feelings excruciatingly.
Aunt Shirley, I instructed you to begin immediately. You shall learn you are not in an institution where you can do as you please any longer.
I was a model pupil at the orphanage, Mr. Phillips. But then there were no children there as rude as Gilbert Blythe.
You can learn a great deal from Gilbert, and in fact you shall. From now on you shall sit next to Gilbert. Perhaps that will teach you to moderate your temper and your pride.
Horrors.
Supper's ready.
All right,
How are you making out from your schoolwork?
fine.
Do you think it's all done just the way Mr. Phillips likes it?
The schoolwork is fine.
What's the matter, Anne?
Nothing.
Well, then I guess you won't need cheering up by what's happening on Saturday. When Mrs. Barry and I go to the market, we've arranged for Diana to come over to tea.
Oh, Marilla, thank you, thank you. Do you know what Marilla said we could have for tea? Fruitcake, cherry preserves, and raspberry cordial.
Oh, I love raspberry cordial.
Well then, my dear, may I serve you a glass?
I'd be ever so grateful.
I shall bring it directly. Marilla's note is right here.
Did you know Charlie Sloane's name is written up on the schoolhouse wall with M. White's? She's real mad about it.
Here it is, I believe.
And Gilbert Blythe did the most awful thing to Tilly Bolter yesterday.
Please, Diana.
You're being really silly, Anne.
I shall never forgive Gilbert Blythe.
He's truly sorry.
Let's not spoil the afternoon together.
All right.
I'll get tea.
This is awfully nice raspberry cordial, Anne.
Oh, Marilla, if you like it, take as much as you want.
The nicest I ever drank. It's so much nicer than Mrs. Lynn's. Although she brags about her so much. Right, it doesn't taste a bit like Mrs. Lynn's.
I should think Marilla's would probably be much nicer than Mrs. Lynn's. Marilla is a famous cook. Will you have some more?
Thank you.
Marilla is trying to teach me to cook, but it's uphill work. There's so little scope for imagination in cookery. We have to go by rules. The last time I made a cake, I forgot to put the flour in. I was imagining a lovely story about you and me. You had the smallpox, and I was nursing you back to health. The cake was a dismal failure. Flour is so essential to cakes, you know. Marilla was very cross, and I don't blame her. I'm a trial to her. Last week, Marilla made a pudding sauce to serve to Mr. and Mrs. Chester Ross. She told me to put it on the shelf and cover it, but while I was carrying it, I was imagining there was a nun taking the veil to bury a broken heart, and I forgot about covering the sauce. When I finally remembered to cover it, I found a mouse drowned in it. I took the mouse out, of course, but Marilla was milking at the time, and I forgot until I saw her carrying it to the table. I screamed, "Marilla, you mustn't use that pudding sauce. There was a mouse drowned in it, and I forgot to tell you." Perla and Matthew and Mr. and Mrs. Ross all just stared at me.
I'm sick. I need to go home.
You mustn't dream of going home. You haven't had your tea.
I've got to go home.
What about your cake and preserves? Lie down for a little and you'll feel better. Where do you feel bad?
I'm awful sick.
Oh, Diana, do you suppose you really are taking the smallpox? If you are, I'll never forsake you. But I do wish you'd stay till after tea.
I'm dizzy.
Diana!
Diana! What is going on, Anne?
Diana's sick, Marilla. We were having a lovely tea when suddenly she became terribly ill.
She's not ill. She's drunk. How did this happen, Diana?
All she's had is that raspberry cordial, Mrs. Barry. Diana thought it was lovely. Better than Mrs. Lynn's. She had 2 glasses.
This isn't raspberry cordial, Anne.
I got it from the cabinet, just like you said.
This is currant wine. You awful girl! You gave my Diana wine.
But I didn't mean to. I thought it was raspberry cordial.
You
Oh,
stay
Diana, I'm
away
so
from
sorry.
her. You've done enough damage as it is.
It's not her fault. I told her the bottle was in the cabinet when I'd forgotten I moved it down to the cellar.
A proper household wouldn't have wine in the first place.
And a proper child wouldn't drink 3 tumblerfuls at a time of you're not stupid. But if when things go wrong, you cry or get angry or go off into your imagination because you're afraid that you really don't deserve anything good, then nothing good will happen to you, and you will end up alone.
My mother says I'm not to talk to you again. She says you're not fit company for me and I'm not to associate with you.
Oh, Diana,
I know it's awful.
won't you relent?
I've cried and told her it wasn't your fault. But she won't be swayed. She says I'm never to play with you again. But Anne, she can't stop us from thinking of one another. We shall still be near each other in the classroom. And as often as we want, we can look at each other with a special look. And we'll know we're imagining ourselves off in the woods on one of your grand adventures.
You really do care for me. Nobody ever has since I can remember.
I'm devoted to you, Anne.
Fare thee well, my bosom friend. Henceforth, we shall be as strangers living side by side. But my heart will ever be faithful to thee.
Hello, Anne. I wanted to tell you how sorry I was about what happened that day, but I knew you were too upset to hear me. You're not still mad, are you?
I'd appreciate it if you'd leave me alone, Gilbert.
Are you going to be mad at me for keeps? I promise I will never tease you about your hair again. I swear it.
I'd just like to be alone for a little.
You really are something. A fella tries to be nice to you, and you just cut him right off.
I'm just not concerned about what you have to say right now.
Well, that's real friendly.
Well, we're not friends as far as I can tell.
Whoever said we were? You think you're so much better than everyone else. Lord knows why.
For your information, Gilbert Blythe, Mr. Phillips is so pleased with my work that he said he's hoping to see me reciting at the end-term concert.
He did not.
He as much as said he expected me to win the top scholar prize if I set my mind to it.
Well, we'll just see about that.
Yes, we will, won't we?
I hope to be home by 9 as usual, but this may not be a usual meeting. We're going to be discussing the Blewett children, though I don't think that there's anything the Church Aid Society can really do.
Replace the mother.
What is that you're working so hard on?
Geometry. I've got to improve.
I don't see how you can do better than you've been doing.
I have to if I'm going to recite at the end-of-term concert.
Fiddlesticks, your learning is your reward. You don't need to be showing off in public.
But I have hopes of making it my most glorious revenge.
Revenge isn't a fit thing for a little girl to be speaking of. I don't think you'll be going to any concert. Be sure to put out your candle tonight. I may be home late, and I don't want to burn it down.
So now that concert is almost a month away, isn't it? And who knows what can happen in a month's time.
Thank you, Matthew. But it's probably best that I not get my heart set on it. I'd look ridiculous standing in front of an audience reciting. I hardly have the appearance of a dignified public figure. I probably won't be selected in any case with all this geometry. Did you ever study geometry when you went to school?
Well, no, I didn't.
I wish you had, because then you'd be able to sympathize with me. It's casting a cloud over my whole life.
Oh, Anne, it's Minnie May. She's awful sick. She's got the croup. And mother and father went to Church Aid Society. There's nobody to go to the doctor, and I don't know what to do. And I'm so scared.
Don't worry, Diana.
It's so bad. It's like she can't breathe, and it came on her all of a sudden.
Matthew's got the doctor, Diana. I know exactly what to do for croup. When you look after 3 sets of twins, you get a lot of experience. Bringing a child out of the air, we all for pneumonia. But it sometimes helps croup. You've had her out in the air, and Minnie May's still coughing. She's got a bad case. We'll just get this abstract down her.
Oh, my Minnie May. I'm the worst sister in the whole continent. She's going to die. Anne, she's going to die.
let children drink it when they really, really need it.
There she is. Sorry it took so long. I had to go all the way to Spencerville.
It was awfully no giving up in despair, Doctor. She got worse and worse, sicker than ever the Hammond twins did. I gave her every drop of Ipecac in the bottle, and when the last drop went down, I said to myself, I didn't want to worry you, Diana, but I had to relieve my feelings. This was the last lingering hope, and I feared it was a vain one. But in about 3 minutes, she coughed at the phlegm, and then she fell asleep.
My baby! Oh, my baby! Oh, is she going to be all right, Doctor? Is she going to be all right?
I expect she is.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Don't thank me. Think that little redheaded girl. She's the one that saved your baby's life. I've never seen such skill and presence of mind in a child that age. I'll write you some prescription for some syrup.
I don't know how I'm going to keep my eyes open at school tomorrow.
Don't you worry about school. You just sleep in.
I can't. I'll fall behind.
You sleep in. I'll do your chores tomorrow.
Good night.
And thank you. And I hope you'll forgive me for misjudging you.
I have no hard feelings, Mrs. Barry, and I assure you I didn't mean to intoxicate Diana. Henceforth, I shall cover the past with a mantle of oblivion.
Yes, well, when you're rested, I would like you to come over and play with Diana.
Oh, Mrs. Barry!
Why, Matthew Cuthbert, what on earth are you doing here?
Well, now, that's a good question.
Has Marilla sent you, Matthew?
Now, no, I don't believe she has. You see, you know how Anne saved little Minnie May? Well, I was thinking she deserves something. You know, like a reward. And I've been watching Anne, you see. And, well, I was thinking that it's only a few weeks to the end of term. And there'll be that concert and all. And Anne might just be asked to go up and recite. And if she did, she ought to look like a dignified public figure.
You want me to make her new dress?
Well, now, I'll pay you for it. Pay you whatever you think's fair.
I'd be glad to do this, Matthew. If Marilla made it, well, Anne would probably get wind of it, and your surprise would be spoiled.
Well, much obliged. Much obliged.
Is there something else, Matthew?
Well, don't they make them dresses different from what they used to? You know, all like,
I'm not sure I know what you're talking about.
well, like this.
Why, Matthew Cuthbert, thinking of dresses and looking through ladies' magazines. My word! Anne's dress will have puff sleeves so big, Marilla will be stunned into silence. And it will be our little secret. This is ever so much fun, isn't it, Anne?
Yes, but I do wish I knew how to swim.
Don't worry, this tub may be as old as the dawn, but I don't think we're in danger of sinking. Just yet.
There's an awful lot of water sinking in. Oh, it's cold.
Yes, a body wouldn't last 5 minutes in this water. Not quite the ideal for a picnic. But end of term deserves some kind of celebration.
1 more week.
Just think. On Friday, you'll know whether you've beaten Gilbert Blythe or not. If you win top scholar prize, will you forgive him?
I don't want to discuss it.
Think about how you felt when my mother wouldn't forgive you.
I don't care how he feels.
You expect everyone to care how you feel.
Oh, we're in luck. Hot cocoa and Marilla's special muffins.
He's apologized to you. He's never teased you again. He's been overly nice to you. What does he have to do, Anne?
He's just so arrogant.
He's just sure of himself, that's all. And there's no reason he shouldn't be. He's always been on top.
Well, he won't this year. I've mastered geometry, and all that's left is the recitation. I'm going to make sure mine is so powerful that no one will have any doubt who is the winner. I'm going to recite the Lady of Shalott.
Oh, how romantic. Drawn by Lancelot to Camelot, from her seclusion to her death. Oh, Anne, you'll be wonderful.
I shall be more than wonderful. I shall become the Lady of Shalott. When I finish, everyone will have seen that awful combination of death and beauty reflected right in my face.
Oh, it's ghastly. However will you manage it?
I shall experience her pain firsthand.
What are you doing?
Down she came and found a boat.
And
Beneath the willows left afloat, and round about the prow she wrote.
the Lady of Shalott.
Well, push me off.
Into the river?
Yes.
No.
Diana, I've got to float down the river, singing my mournful holy song.
I'm dying.
All right, I'll push myself off. But I thought of my bosom friend. You want to be part of this. This is entering the world of Camelot, of Lancelot, of
The Lady of Shalott.
Yes.
All right, lie back down. Lying robed in snowy white, that loosely flew from left to right, through the leaves upon her falling light, through the noises of the night. What are you doing? Oh, my heart. My heart. I should have known this was some trick of yours, Anne Shirley. I came the back way purposefully not to meet you, and of course, here you are.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Lynde. We weren't trying to scare you.
I think you scared us just as much as we did you. I suppose I did. Well, my feet are on the ground anyways, not under it, so I suppose no damage is done, thank goodness.
Why didn't you want me, Mrs. Lynde?
Never you mind. Go on back to your silly game. But try not to scare anyone else.
She didn't want me to see what she had in that bundle. It's connected with the concert. I can feel it. It's an omen, Diana.
A bad omen, Anne. You shouldn't go out in the river. It's too deep and cold, and the
Come
currents
on, push me off.
And I really think...
And as the boat had wound along the willowy hills and fields among, they heard her singing her last song. Diana,
All right. The Lady of Shalott.
heard a carol mournful holy, chanted loudly, chanted lowly, till her blood was frozen slowly, and her eyes were darkened wholly. Diana!
What?
It's leaking! The water's flooding in!
Row to shore, Anne, quick!
The paddle's there!
Oh, no!
It's sinking! Run for help, Diana, run!
But don't get in the water! You'll freeze!
For ere she reached upon the tide, the first house by the waterside. Singing in her song she cried, the Lady of Shalott. Under tower and balcony, by garden wall and gallery, a gleaming shape she floated by, dead pale between the houses high, silent into Camelot. Out upon the wharfs they came, knight and burgher, lord and dame, and round the prow they read her name, the Lady of Shalott. Who is this and what is here?
And in the lighted palace near died the sound of royal cheer, and they crossed themselves with fear, all the knights at Camelot. But Lancelot mused a little space. He said she has a lovely face. God in his mercy lent her grace, the Lady of Shalott. What were you doing?
I was in the Barry's boat when it sprang a leak. Diana went for help. Could you take me to shore? I'm very much obliged to you.
Anne, look here. It's been such a long time. And it was only a silly, stupid joke I made. And besides, I think your hair is awfully pretty. Awful pretty. Honest, I do. I promise I won't ever call you carrots again. And I'll come and save you whenever you need. I'll be your Lancelot. My lovely Lady of Shalott.
I shall never be friends with you, Gilbert Blythe.
Then I'll never ask you again. And I don't care. You're the one who should have been apologizing to me.
Oh, Anne! I thought you drowned! Oh, Anne, I felt like a murderer because I pushed you off! I was in hysterics!
You're all right?
Yes, Matthew, I'm sorry I frightened you.
However did you escape?
Gilbert Blythe came along in the dory and brought me to land.
Oh, how splendid of him. How romantic.
It was not romantic. I do not ever want to hear the word romantic again.
Well, then, at least you'll be speaking to him.
I won't. Not ever.
He saved your life, Anne.
He only wanted to mock me.
You're impossible. Whenever you've done something wrong, everyone's expected to say it's all right.
But anytime anyone's done anything wrong to you, oh, there's no way to make up for it. How can anyone be friends with you, Anne?
Diana! Well, it's too bad for her. She doesn't want to be my friend. I don't need her anyway.
I guess you don't need anybody. I guess you just need to be left all on your own.
They all wish I didn't exist. And they're right.
Are you alright?
Yes.
You're not mad at her for almost drowning, are you?
No.
What's the matter, Matthew?
You spent the last 40 years minding your own business. You don't need to change now.
Matthew told me the Blythe boy saved you. He's a nice-looking fellow. Reminds me of his father. We used to be real good friends, his father and I. People even called him my beau. And then we had a quarrel. And I wouldn't forgive him when he asked. Oh, I meant to, after a while, but I was sulky and angry and I wanted to punish him. He never came back. And I was always rather sorry. Wished I'd forgiven him when I had the chance. I'll make some tea to warm you up.
Good evening, Mr. Cuthbert, Miss Cuthbert. This is Gilbert Blythe.
How do you do?
Anne, I know you're in there. I won't let your stubbornness or your pride ruin our friendship. Anne, or the friendship you should have with Gil.
I can't always do what everyone else says, Diana. I'm not like you and Gil. I say and think wild, embarrassing things. I have fits of temper. I'm incorrigible.
You're not so different from us, Anne. A lot of people say I'm just as incorrigible as you. I think it's a compliment to both of us. You always make things exciting. I'm looking forward to standing next to you at the concert, no matter who wins.
Thank you, Gil.
Are we going to be friends now?
You've always treated me like a friend. I've just been too foolish to realize it.
Oh, I'm so glad you've come.
I shall never forget you, Diana. Never.
Anne,
I think we're all a bit frayed from the excitement. Thank you for coming over.
good night, Miss Cuthbert, Mr. Cuthbert. Good night, Anne.
Good night.
See you tomorrow.
I was going to leave a letter for you, but that wouldn't be fair. I've got to face up to it. You've done everything you could for me, and I've been nothing but a burden to you.
No, Anne.
You're the gentlest soul alive, Matthew. I don't want to bring you any more pain. I couldn't bear to see you look like you did this afternoon, and I know I would. I know I would hurt you again. It's better if I go.
No.
I don't belong here,
Why?
because I don't.
Because you're ugly and have red hair. Because the devil's in you. Because you're an orphan.
Yes.
Come sit down. When I was young, I was always being teased about my looks. I didn't like myself much, was sure I was ugly. So I tried to imagine that ugliness away. I didn't do it like you, for romance and fantasy and show. I turned to work. I tried to put people out of my life. Until you came. You are part of this family, Anne.
I don't deserve this.
You do. You deserve everything. You're smart and pretty and loving too, which is better than all the rest. You're a blessing to us, Anne, and there was never a luckier mistake than what Miss Blewett made.
If I'd been the boy you sent for, I could have helped you so much more.
I'd rather have you than a dozen boys, Anne. You mind that, rather than a dozen. You're my girl.
And mine. It's never been easy for me to say things from my heart, but I love you as dear as if you were my own flesh and blood. I need you here, Anne.
And everyone's gonna know how good you are.
Look at those sleeves! Look at those sleeves! I'm gonna make you so proud, so very proud.
I very seldom get to do this in one of our open enrollment productions, although this is an audition-only homeschool production. But that is because our homeschool program has grown so much in the last couple of years. And so for the first time, I was actually informed that we have a graduating senior in our group. And so I'm used to doing this at the end of the year at the senior company parties, but never before have I been with the homeschool group here to say congratulations. And thank you for being such an important part of what we do here, Haley.